I just wanted you all to see what it would be like if anybody ever made me be quiet. No, I'm not going to do PowerPoints. You're safe from me. I wave my hands instead. The rewrite of Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 of the comp plan is going swimmingly. The new commission is straightening out all kinds of foobars and snafus that they inherited. They're being thoughtful. They're being civil. They're listening to the public. That's the good news. The bad news is that you cannot go smugly home and declare that we got our county back. Eternal vigilance is the price of liberty. And more important than that, democracy is a participatory sport. If you don't play, it doesn't work. It's not that the folks you elected are a bunch of chameleons that are going to change color as soon as you turn your back. They're good guys. But this is a democracy, and they can't operate without your continuing input. Come to meetings. Watch county TV if you can't come to the meeting. Write letters to the editor. Send emails. Don't go away. Your first big test is March 21st. The LPA will be holding a hearing on the rewrite of Chapter 1 and Chapter 2. You need to be there. You need to bring your neighbors. You may not need to say anything at all, but you need to be there. I have received hundreds of emails on Chapter 1 and Chapter 2. The county has received hundreds of emails. They are running, according to the last count from the planning department, about 100 to 1 in support of the amendments to back up and give us back Martin County. Lee Weberman told the county commission that that's because we know you have the votes and it doesn't matter what we say. He suggested that the whole thing be put off for a year while he thought of what to say. But this is not a time to be smug about being on the winning side and having the votes. Now is the time to show that you, as the residents of Martin County, your representatives who are having those votes on the county commission, deserve those votes. Some folks in the development community are helping make the rewrite better. I deeply appreciate their help. Some, I'd say probably a majority, are just watching. Some are snarling in private and plotting how to get even in the next election. But this is really, really important stuff. And it needs to be talked about. It needs to be discussed. It doesn't need to just happen because we did it and we won and we know we're right. It needs to be something that people in Martin County understand and will understand when I'm gone and will keep going as to what makes Martin County special. We're setting out to make sure that our comp plan lays out in the first 2 chapters what our overall goals are. It used to. Then they took them all out because they said you could read the 16 or 17 chapters and you could find them all if you really wanted to. We thought they ought to be in the beginning of it. We're putting in place a process that makes sure those goals can be achieved. The goals: protect residents, protect our environment, build a strong economy, protect the taxpayer, be people-friendly, river-friendly, and business-friendly, and don't waste money. The problem with having a discussion about these goals is that nobody wants to admit that they don't agree. There is a school of thought that says we can't have it all, and that if we want a strong economy, we can't be so protective of residents and the environments and taxpayers. I disagree with that. I think we have proved that it's not true. I think we can prove that it's not true by an objective comparison between Martin County and other Florida counties. To a greater degree than most, we have it all. When Bill Fruth and other business consultants tell us that our comp plan is going to bankrupt us and we have to loosen up, there's a key question they have to answer. Show me. Show me where a local government decided to negatively impact its residents and their homes and the residential areas they lived in. Show me where they decided up front that they were going to destroy more of their environment and raise taxes and spend more. And do you want to live there? Show me that place that did it differently. Usually the people who are saying these things to us are living here, so we must be doing something right. And the other question, did it really make their economy any better when they hurt their residents, they hurt their environment, they raised taxes, and they wasted money? Coming back to those goals, realizing that broad generalities really don't solve problems because they sound too good. Chapter 2 now backs those overall goals up with objectives and policies that will make things happen. Goal 1, protecting the people who live here. That includes putting back into the comprehensive plan what we call the Pinecrest protections. At Pinecrest Lakes in the 1990s, a developer and our county commission decided to ignore the comp plan policies about having a density transition area between higher density condos and existing single-family residential areas. They approved a plan that was not consistent with the policies in the plan. And then the developer accelerated his time schedule to build the condo in question that was not consistent, on the theory that if he went ahead and built it, nobody would bother him. And when he pulled his building permits, he was told that the county was going to be sued and that he really shouldn't do that. And he hurried up and did it even faster. And in the end, the citizens' lawsuit won. They said the planned transition area needed to be enforced, and the condo was torn down. That's not an ideal situation. You know, I'm a child of Depression parents. It rather hurts me when you tear down buildings. But if you flat out walk in, say, I don't care if it's illegal, I'm going to push it through, and then after I pushed it through, I'm going to build it as fast as possible, you need to be aware in Martin County you may have to tear it down. Well, unfortunately, over the years that have happened since the citizens won, the Pinecrest provision in the comp plan has been somewhat diluted and watered down. We want to put it back the way it was to protect residential areas. Goal 2 is about our natural resources. It's about clearly outlining policies on wetlands, shorelands, river restoration, open space, aquifer protection. It's about letting people know that Martin County is serious about protecting its environment. It's about putting those policies up front so they won't be diluted and compromised somewhere back in Chapter 17. Goal 3 is about business. It is one of the great ironies of Martin County that the business community, or at least those people who style themselves as spokesmen for the business community, think of us as anti-business little old ladies in tennis shoes. I would be willing to bet that the majority of voters who voted to take back Martin County last year have a business background and believe in prudent spending and believe in rational thought and good information and clear rules. It really is funny in a county that has so many business people, both working in their little small business and not getting involved in this fight, or retired here from some big or small business. They're wholeheartedly for keeping Martin County a good place to live and don't see any conflict in it. And yet, we are called anti-business. We can help business. We can help by having clear rules that are consistently enforced, by making sure that the public facilities they need to run a business are there when they need them, and by running a responsible business-like government that doesn't waste their tax dollars and play favorites. Goal 4 is about being fiscally conservative. We have not been. The new commission has a monumental job in charting a new direction where actions are fiscally sustainable. For starters, Chapter 2 will reiterate what it already says in Chapter 14. What our priorities are for capital projects. First, you maintain what you have and you fix what's broken. You don't go to the toy store until after you've been to the grocery store. And Next, you deal with the new facilities that you will need for new development. Putting those priorities up front makes it a little clearer to everybody that those priorities do have to be followed if we're going to have comprehensive planning at all. You can go to the martincounty.com website, and there are pieces of paper that say what that is, so you don't have to scribble it all down. You can read our proposed overall goals and policies. It's much more detailed than a vision. It's a set of community standards we mean to enforce and we want people to know about. Pick your favorite one and send an email to the LPA telling them why you think it is a Martin County policy that should be upfront and personal in our comprehensive plan. And don't forget that we're still at the beginning of this process on the amendment. We've had 4 workshops so far, and we are now really just starting with the first LPA hearing. After that, there will be a transmission hearing from the County Commission, and after that, there will be an adoption hearing. If you see something, when you go to the website, and if you have the courage to read it, and remember, you can read this. You're not stupid people. This is not rocket science. If you can't understand it, then the people who will have to be enforcing it won't understand it either. So if when you read it, you don't get it, you don't understand it, you think the wording is confusing, please let me know. There's lots of room to make these 2 amendments better as we proceed through the process. And what we're talking about in both chapters is putting things back in the beginning of the plan. Chapter 1 is about getting the process in order. Last summer's approach to amending the comp plan felt like chaos. It was. The rewrite of Chapter 1 is about putting order, predictability, and consistency into the plan amendment process. It's not about preventing all comprehensive plans from ever happening. It's about having some sort of sane and predictable process so that people know how they should be happening. Most notably, probably, it's about requiring a supermajority vote to weaken plan protections on critical issues. Critical protections that we don't want to make it easy to do away with include the 4-story height limit, the 15-unit per acre density cap, the urban boundary, wetland protection, concurrency requirements, or the requirement that growth should pay for itself. They include amendments that would increase negative impacts on the St. Lucie River or change the requirement for a supermajority vote. There is an important detail right at the end there. If you have a supermajority vote that can be changed by a 3-2 vote, you don't have a supermajority vote anymore. So that is taken care of. Those things still can be changed, but it will take 4 votes from the County Commission to change them, or weaken them. All other plan amendments will still require only a 3-2 vote for adoption. There's another area of the plan amendments that everyone should be familiar with and everyone should speak out on. The changes to Chapter 1 and Chapter 2 do a lot of things, but one of the things that I've most tried to do is to straighten out our information systems and our processes so that everybody knows what the rules are and everyone knows the facts when we look at amending the comp plan. It is mind-boggling the amount of time we spend in this county arguing about facts, when in fact there's a good resource as to what the facts are, because they're facts. One of the areas we've done that in for years now is population and residential capacity. It's a monumental flashpoint because the development community sees a higher population projection and a lower residential capacity prediction as a way to expand the urban boundary. And the rest of us sometimes see it as cheating. But in fact, what has happened since 1992, when we first started having these official kind of projections, is I went back and looked whether it was just exhaustion in the face of pressure or whether it was fudging. We always predicted there'd be more population than there was. And we always predicted we had less land available than we had. And the reason that after people say, well, you've got to change the plan, it's 30 years old. The reason it's still working is because we have so much extra land capacity inside the urban boundary. And we so over-exaggerated the population that we still have room to grow within our urban boundaries. The residential capacity analysis is now in Chapter 1 formalized, so we have a better idea of how many units we can put inside the current boundaries of the current urban service district, the eastern one and the one in Indiantown. We shouldn't be afraid of the answers we will get when we look at good population estimates that hold still, and we look at residential capacity estimates that hold still and are based on fact. In simple terms, the state requires us to plan for enough housing units to be built to meet the population projections for 10 years. Back in '92, we fudged. We said, well, we need enough housing for 125% of 15 years. And ECA didn't want any more fights on their hands than they had back in 1992, so they let us get by with that instead of the 10 years. The changes in 1 and 2 have concurrent changes in Chapter 4 that say that when the amount of vacant residential land in the urban service district, the residential capacity, gets down to 15 years, that the county has to start planning to expand capacity. Didn't say that before. It sort of sounds like a pro-growth thing, doesn't it? I would say it's a pro-reality thing. We should not be sitting around and waiting for somebody to build a new building out in the boondocks, new city out in the boondocks. We should be saying how we're going to plan for the future here. And this puts it on the line that 15 years of capacity, Martin County starts planning. And it says, and when they have reduced capacity by building on the vacant land to 10 years, then you have to increase the capacity. You have to increase it by increasing density on particular pieces of land or by expanding the urban boundary. That's new. It's an odd idea to be coming from an alleged no-growth. I am the first person to recognize that come the next election, the county commission races will be hard-fought, and the bitter divide between no-growth, pro-growth, slow growth, fast growth will still be there. I realize that the future group is already practicing drawing cartoons of Sarah Hurd with a throne and a crown, striking down the bleeding populace and starving small children. We are not all going to end up holding hands and singing Kumbaya. But you can't just go home and smugly say we won, get these plan amendments passed, and then do nothing else. We can't walk away from solving problems just because some folks on the other side don't want to help. I would challenge you with the thought that now that we've got our county back, now that we're about to get our comp plan back, what are we going to do to plan for the future? What are we going to do to let property owners and developers know what happens next? What are we going to do to avoid having the ugly free-for-all we saw last summer be the county's answer to planning for the future? First, we put our house in order. Then we get the numbers right. Then we admit, out loud, that whether it's next year or 15 years from now, we are going to see population outgrow the current urban boundaries. Like it didn't strike me. Changing the urban boundaries shouldn't be easy, but sometimes it's going to happen. Nat Reed is fond of saying these days, thank God I'll be dead by then, but it's going to happen, and we need to be planning for it now. Planning for that with intelligent, accurate information and clear comp plan policies and good planning principles can save all of us a lot of time and money and grief. Instead of planning for new cities popping up wherever they want to and wherever somebody can buy cheap land, instead of planning for a new I-95 city as the new center of the county, instead of reacting to bad ideas, why don't we start having some good ideas? Why don't we start planning to expand the urban boundary? Not leapfrog, not go somewhere else, but expand on what we have. That's the whole principle of why an urban service district makes so much sense financially. You use the schools and the roads and the utilities you have instead of building a whole new set of them. Practically speaking, such a planning effort would look at 3 corridors. At 714 out past Palm City, you'd look out west of 714. At State Road 76 on Canner Highway, you would look out at the area beyond the Turnpike, which is the only place where the urban service district actually bulges out west. At Bridge Road, you would look not west of the Turnpike, but along Bridge Road to see what's available there for expansion. Start at the boundary of the urban service district. Work outward. Look at existing patterns of development. Where you have 5-acre lots in Palm City, don't tell them they're going to become a city, leave them alone. Respect the existing patterns of development. Where you have large empty areas, but you have sewer, water, a school, and a road, think about that becoming an area for expansion when we get to the point that we need to expand. Look at utilities. Look at what capacity is available in the utilities. Where are the water and sewer lines? Where are the roads? What are the road capacity constraints? Look at schools. Where are they? Collecting and sorting and illustrating the basic information will make it possible for a future county commission to make good policy decisions. Information isn't policy, it's fact. Information is something we can get now. And that basic information won't get old and it won't get stale. If we lay it all out now, and we see what the potential is, we could create an urban boundary expansion area where a landowner could know what development options would be available when we got to the point that we need to expand residential capacity. Collecting and sorting and illustrating all of that will make it possible to do that. I think having the alleged no-growthers enthusiastically involved in planning for growth is an exciting idea. It makes it clear that we really are concerned with how we grow and what the impacts will be on existing residents, the environment, our local businesses, and taxes. We're not chained to the urban boundary, declaring it will never change. We're not determined to stop all growth. I hope we can start an initiative like that. So, don't go away. We need you to help with that initiative. We need you to be part of planning Martin County's future. We've proved before that we can grow and prosper and keep Martin County a good place to live. Lee Weberman told the Commission recently that if these amendments are adopted, it will be the summer all growth stops in Martin County. And I remembered from 1982, in the middle of the night, actually it's 1 o'clock in the morning, on April Fool's Day, we adopted the first Martin County Comprehensive Plan on a 4-to-1 vote. The commissioner who disagreed broke his pencil in half, threw it across the room, and said, "You've just stopped all growth in Martin County." It didn't happen. We have grown. We have prospered. We're a good place to live. Lee is wrong. We're not out to stop all growth. But more than ever, you can't go home and say we won. You need to be part of the process. Lots of people have said lots of nice things about me. I will say back to you, the citizens of Martin County, this couldn't happen just anywhere. This happens because you came to this meeting. This happens because you're going to the LPA meeting on the 21st and you're going to drag a neighbor. This happens because you send emails. This happens because you get vested in political campaigns of electing good guys. And you're going to have to stay involved. And it's worth doing. We have accomplished something pretty special. We can get it back, and we can keep it special. Thank you.
Mr. Maggie, how do the legislative bills that Charles Paxson spoke of regarding conservation lands affect Martin County?
One of the things we do not do enough of here in Martin County is pick on our legislators. I am sure that the Alliance newsletter will be happy to give you a list of, and I got to hug them and tell them you knew they really wanted to do this. You don't have to pick on them. But we need to communicate. The legislature and the governor have been in a framework of, well, you saw, let's see, we've got about 40 or 50,000 acres of wilderness in Martin County now, and we're going to have to sell all of it if we're going to have enough land to do SERP. But if we sell all of it, we can't do SERP, so we can't restore the river because we have to sell the river land we bought to save the river in order to buy more land to save the river. What the legislature does, both through bills like that and whether they adequately fund the Florida Forever program and whether that legacy amendment gets the number of signatures it needs, make all the difference to Martin County. The state's role in Everglades restoration, which comes down to St. Lucie River restoration, is buying land. If they cease buying land, Everglades restoration is over. Politicians love to talk about shovel ready, but if you haven't got a piece of land to put the shovel in, it doesn't do you any good to be shovel ready. So I would ask every one of you to make sure you sign that petition. Take some others along. You can pull it down off the net and get it printed at home. But get that petition signed, and let's get a land buying program back going in Florida. And make it a point in this session to let your legislators know that one thing, if only one thing, please, they can do for us, is make sure that they do something about the state's ability to go forward on land buying for Everglades restoration and St. Lucie River restoration. Thank you for giving me that soapbox, Myron. Yes?
Maggie, the comprehensive plan is so important. A lot of times if you make changes, even maybe small ones, innocuous ones, they could still have unintended consequences. I think that anytime you want to futz around with it, it should always require a supermajority.
I didn't hear the last.
It should always require a supermajority whenever you make any change to the plan.
In the world of compromise, I don't think you could get that. Therefore, I will settle for a supermajority on the critical issues. But you're right. One of the things that the plan does now is to say that the stricter requirement in the plan will rule. It said that in 1982. It stopped saying that somewhere along the line. They said, oh, if we manage to pass this and it's different than this, then we can balance the two. Well, that doesn't work because you have no rules to do it. If at least we have a plan that says the stricter policy rules, then we are somewhat protected from the thing you're talking about. Yes?
Maggie, I thought I heard you say something about changing the densities as an option as opposed to...
I only said that to be honest.
Okay.
I am not planning to change the density in the vacant land next to you. And in fact, I think Morris Crady had an op-ed piece last spring saying, oh, those terrible people who are sticking to the urban boundary are going to cause all the density around you to be wildly increased. I'm saying the county has options. It either increases the residential capacity within the urban boundary or it expands the urban boundary, one or the other.
One of the things that happened in the 750 talks that we were involved in, there was an option at a shopping center and have you get transportation, mass transportation past this place, it's along Route 1. The thought was, could we have apartments on top of the buildings that are commercial? So I know that there's...
You could if you could get anybody to live in them.
Well, the idea is to change it so that it's nice enough, I guess.
It's a nice idea. It has worked in really urban areas. It doesn't work when people have an option. I hate to say that. It's a nice idea. But the fact is that, altogether too many planners hate suburbia. But people with small children love suburbia. People who've retired and like to garden in their backyard love suburbia. People who want to be safe and not have crime, are really happy with suburbia. And so when you tell them they're all going to live in apartments over the grocery store so they won't crowd the highways, it just doesn't work. Yes?
They've already had problems in that area in West Palm Beach where people objected to the noise from businesses that they live on top of.
And the biggest thing you see in terms of, larger national things is we got a real big increase over the last 20 years in young professionals who live alone. Not getting married, they're not having kids, they're doing things in the big city. They really were looking for apartments in the big city where there was a lot of noise and a lot of stuff going on. The rest of us weren't. Any other questions? Thank you all so much.